RTI brought in a very small equation. All the greatest scientific equations, when you come down to it, it's very simple.
Right.
So all that it said was, everything in the government is mine because the constitution says in its preamble that I'm sovereign. And if I'm sovereign, I have a right to know what is happening because you're dealing with my money. Sushila, this friend of mine who's a fourth class pass, RTI struggler from Javaja, she went there and they asked her, "What have you come to do?" She said, "When I send my son with 10 rupees to the market and when he comes back, I ask for accounts. This government spends millions of rupees in my name. Won't I ask for the accounts? It's my money, so it's my accounts." And that equation of our money, our accounts, my money, my accounts is extraordinarily fantastic.
But perhaps most worrying of all, Mahashweta Devi had said that the most fundamental of all rights is the right to dream. And I'm seeing young people, what we're snatching away from them is that right to dream. I mean, there's no future, there's no jobs. So for a large section of our young people, they seem, trapped.
Actually, if I sat down to look at what is making the world go the evil way and see the nature of money buying not only votes but buying hatred, seeding enmity because it sees profit.
Why is it that the young people in India are facing the same challenges? Why aren't they rebelling? Is our legacy of caste and submission to injustice so deep that we will not rise? Salam, Namaste, Zindabad. This is Mander here. We coming for a very special episode of the series Ye Daag Daag Ujala, where we speak about the state of our nation and our republic. In this episode, I have one very special guest. Firstly, we are sitting in a village called Tilonia. Tilonia is a place where more than half a century ago, Aruna Roy very charismatically came into the countryside and, in a sense, paved the way for a whole generation to understand rural development and social service. Aruna, a few years later, Aruna Roy, who is our guest today, Aruna Roy left the IAS after about 7 years and came resolutely on this path of firstly rural development, but in some time she chose a path of struggle, minimum wages, the right to information, accountability in governance. These are some of the battles that she very iconically fought on behalf of democracy and our people. And at a personal level, Aruna and I have been friends for about half a century, I think, beginning right at this place where we are sitting when I came away from college and volunteered here for the first time. So, Aruna, thank you so much for making time for this conversation.
Not at all.
But I felt that there's so much that you have seen and thought about and struggled for and fought for in the deepening of India's democracy, in the building of a more humane society. And you've sort of fought your own battles as a woman, as a feminist, as a former civil servant, in many different capacities. We've had so many different ways that we've worked together. But I thought this was really a good moment. Two of your books have recently come out. The RTI story, Power to the People, and your memoir, a very, very significant memoir. The personal is political, uh, and uh, and our country is at this moment going through uh, a deeply troubled time. In so many ways, the values that you were raised with, that I was raised with, uh, the country that we were convinced as young people that we would build together seems to be, hurtling more and more distant. So, so let's really, this is really a conversation about you and how you have engaged with life, with your country, with the people you love, with friendship, with disappointments, with dreams. Um, so I don't know where to start, but let me ask you, um, perhaps right in the present, what is it that troubles you most about our country at this moment?
I think there's no one thing that troubles me. So I think it's a question which is very complex and needs to be broken into its many parts.
Right.
But I have the tremendous good fortune of living in a village.
Mm-hmm.
And in the village, I think, though we see through media and I read in the papers, I know that there are many decisions like if you even look at a thing like the right to information law, that the right to information law is being decimated and destroyed through the digital act that is coming in now. Nevertheless, what has really reinforced my faith and optimism that we can fight the battle is living with people in rural India. I think in rural India, I know you wrote a series of articles once called From the Grassroots,
Yes.
right?
No,
Yeah.
barefoot.
From Barefoot College. I next to the Barefoot College. I don't belong to the Barefoot College in that sense. I belong to the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, but nevertheless, I'm a neighbor of Barefoot College. But I've been, I said it's a tremendous good fortune. So while you see the most awful kinds of poverty and destitution, you also see the kind of anger that could be generated against communities. I still live in a part of India where there is still friendliness and affection between those communities who are projected as warring by New Delhi. So, what happens therefore is that I understand the larger politics, and I, like you, am worried, and I really worry for the future of this country and the world today. Globally, look at what's happening to us. But I feel that the tenacity to continue to do something for my people, for the issues I believe in, comes looking at the courage of very ordinary people. And I think since I live in this atmosphere, I have been able to fight off a kind of cynicism and despair that could follow the kind of situation you described. And in this, I'm deeply beholden to my extraordinary number of rural friends and good well wishers seeing me through this. And I think when I meet, for instance, say Norti, the Dalit, still lives very simply and in the village 4 kilometers away, and despite being sarpanch or anything, still knows that none of these superficial things last, still has clung on to it. And she doesn't despair.
Yes.
I feel a little self indulgent in despairing. So I just sort of feel that if she can fight her quarrels and her battles, then I must assist her and I must see how she is tackling this and maybe learn from her as to how to do things in a better way, probably. One thing that the MKSS has done continually, which is uh, looked at the fault lines in governance and looked at ways in which the condition of the very, very destitute and poor can be helped in a structural manner.
Mhm.
So, in the quarrel and struggle for structural change,
Right.
I think it's easier to bond people across various divisions because there is such a thing as the right to just live, which is both intimidated by the kind of policies where you kill somebody because they're born in a different religion, different caste, different gender, but it's also a battle for access to certain rights which can bring people together. So while you fight those divisions and those terrible situations, both historical, current, and the kind of discrimination that there is in this country, you still want to work with people who can be loving and affectionate. And I am equally, therefore, a member of a very, very large family, rural family, for which to whom I am grandmother, I'm mother's sister Masi, I'm father's sister Bua, I'm also sister Didi. They don't call them Didi here in Rajasthan. I'm Gigi. So I am many things. So that relationship of a large family and a community somehow makes me helps me tide and fight the bigger battles. So when I do say things which people do not very much like, it's still within the larger community of people who share something. So it becomes easier, but I'm not at all saying that the situation in this country is not frightening. It is very frightening. If the DPDPA comes through, RTI is finished. Already many things are finished,
Yeah.
and all our rights to protest are gone. Institutions of oversight are all dismantled. Look at what's happening in Bihar. Look at what's going to happen in maybe many other states. Look at what's happening everywhere. I mean, things are frightening, but I think the only way to fight it is to understand both theoretically and intellectually how these fights can be, to look at the nerve centers and the fault lines in those battles. And I think we have to fight it that way. And I'm not willing to say that they have got me to a position where I feel nothing can happen. I just cannot ever let that happen.
So Aruna, I really like the fact that you insist that you still hold on to hope, and that your hope is primarily derived from the courage of ordinary people, but I would say also the humanity of ordinary
Yes.
people. And yet, you know, yet we are seeing uh, our constitution more in peril than it ever was in the last 75 years. We're seeing there are few things that I know that you engage with a lot, and so I'll talk about those. I mean, there's an overarching climate of hate and fear targeting community. There's also massive inequality, which is
Yes,
grown. It's grown. We are more unequal than in British times,
that's right.
and that's expanding further. And sitting at the vantage of rural India, you will be able to see the consequences of that. We are seeing not just communism but also caste uh, injustice very deep and
Entrenched.
entrenched. Uh, we are seeing governance, as you spoke about, evading all systems of public accountability.
Yes.
And so hate, unaccountability, the right, elite capture of public, and that also the destruction uh, of the regime of social rights. And you and I were both in the National Advisory Council, and it was a moment when together some of us, uh, with the help of much larger people's struggle and movements, were able to uh, uh, be part of a number of social rights coming into being. That seems to be also falling apart in the sense that the notion of getting something uh, as your right as a citizen and getting something as largest from the benevolent sort of leader, they're very different. Like the right to food, we were proud of the fact that 800 million people were getting half their calorie requirements almost free of charge. But now you get it in a package with Mr. Modi's picture, and it's very different from or the right to work in NREGA, etc. So there's an erosion of that. But perhaps most worrying of all, Mahashweta Devi had said that the most fundamental of all rights is the right to dream. And I'm seeing young people, what we're snatching away from them is that right to dream. I mean, there's no future, there are no jobs. So for a large section of our young people, they seem, trapped in a place where social mobility, jobs, a future seems more and more imperiled. So it is a very difficult moment, and I think our political leadership. Do you think our political leadership, but also is civil society responding adequately to these challenges? And as somebody who's been a leading and inspiring voice in civil society, where do you think? Surely we haven't done enough if the country has reached this place.
I think, Harsh, you've been a civil servant, so have I. What have the civil servants done for this country? I'd like to ask.
Yeah, that's absolutely
Yeah?
right. Yeah.
What have they done? Why haven't they stood up
The
for
civ-
constitutional correctness? Nothing more,
yeah,
which you did when
yeah,
you were
yeah,
in the service.
yeah.
But how many others have done so?
The
So
collapse
the
of the civil
constitution,
the collapse of the civil
the
service. I just like to
constitution,
say for a minute, is so profound because like bulldozers. I'm seeing this whole business of just the government deciding somebody's committed a crime, bulldozers coming
no,
and you're
let me
demolishing.
just continue with talking about you. You had the simple and clear idea that you, as a civil servant, had sworn on the Indian Constitution to implement it for the poor and the underprivileged and the disenfranchised and the discriminated in your country, and you did that.
Yeah.
Why, between Mr. Shankaran and you, and after you, there's been so much dilution in the way a civil servant is trained and the ideas that are put into the civil servant's head in the training period, and what are the dreams of that civil servant? So, actually, now, if you look at the larger gamut of things, I think at two levels. I speak at the grassroots level because I live here, but I also see the link between the dreams. You say there are no dreams. I think there are dreams, but they are not dreams that we would dream. They are dreams of making more money, of buying more things, of everybody, every village. Amazon reaches every village. People buy everything online. Children buy clothes online. Everything is bought online. So the market has completely and thoroughly infiltrated the whole setup. Whether from, if you talk about electoral bonds, where are the big corporations which are buying political parties at the top level,
Right.
and the whole idea the of the mind being trapped in an acquisitive and consumption society. Now, in that situation, I think for me, one of the extremely difficult things is to sit with young people who still dream, but dream in a manner in which I feel that their dreams are manipulated.
Yeah.
The manipulation of those dreams is what's frightening. They still dream.
What
So,
Chomsky called manufactured consent.
yes,
These are
yes.
manufactured
They're,
dreams.
no, they're not manufactured. They're even more clever than being manufactured. That's what I feel. That they have understood at some deep level the psychology of what makes a person happy temporarily. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as absolute happiness, So they play on that, and it's this extremely complicated, but in fact very simple link between all these factors that have made life really terrible for people like us who didn't think that ever that a family. Now we are doing a debt survey in through the School for Democracy and MKSS, and every family is it so heavily in debt that not in this lifetime can they repay. Now, what happened in the past? We used to go and say, अच्छा कर्जा कितना है आपके यहाँ? आपने किसके लिए कर्जा लिया? आपने कौन से पारिवारिक चीजें के लिए कर्जा लिया? What traditional issue made you take money? And we were all dead against the money lender and so on. Now, today, there are these people who come and sell you everything on MIS.
Yeah.
You buy them.
EMI.
Sorry. EMI, and you're indebted for life. And you're buying 3, 4, 5 EMIs at the same time. So you buy one EMI, get another EMI, pay off this one with that, pay off that one with that. And finally, they also go to the traditional money lender. So every family is in such heavy debt. And when I spoke to somebody in Delhi, an ex-civil servant, and he said, oh, but debt nowadays is seen as an asset. So now you see the intricate and complicated manner in which mines have been bought. So in a sense, I feel I have gone back, I'm a student of literature, I've gone back to two very important dystopias I read. One was called The Brave New World, and the other one was called 1984, which you also have read and I have also read. These two dystopias were very, very far-sighted in two completely different ways. So there's a coming together of Brave New World in 1984. Brave New World because the mind is being conditioned from a very early part of its childhood. A society which never knew when it was born. Shankar doesn't know his birthday, my colleague and friend in the MKS. His mother didn't even know when they were married. None of these dates were ever fixed in their heads. Now, every child in the village celebrates his birthday. And in that birthday, he apes what he sees on the TV or with all the richer people. And they spend 10 to 15 to 20,000 rupees on a birthday for a day. And they're not happy with what is made at home. You have to have a cake, you have to have. So what we are doing is this extraordinary onslaught on custom, tradition, everything. So I think the battle is really large. But I think we also have to see and disaggregate the battle into many small parts. And we should not be frightened by the large demon or dragon we see. But we have to see the various parts of the dragon and demon and start working. And I think unfortunately, I belonged to a privileged class. When I was born into it, I tried to declassify myself as much as possible. I'm living in a home which is somewhat middle class because Bankar is very ill and he needs help, and we are there, back to square one in many ways. Inherited all these books from family, which are also there. But nevertheless, one tried to declassify oneself, tried to live on very little, which I still do. Wore only clothes that were given, didn't buy anything. But nevertheless, I still see in these homes and in these people the complete buying of the mind by the market. So actually, I feel there is no politics. Today, there is money. Actually, if I sat down to look at what is making the world go the evil way, I would like to become a student all over again and see the nature of money buying not only votes, but buying hatred, seeding enmity, because it sees profit. In a war, it sees profit because it's going to sell arms and ammunition. In a situation where people live amicably, it sows the seed of doubt and disharmony because it sees profit from that.
So electoral profit as well.
Electoral profit, but that's what is so easily visible. But behind that, there is a huge interplay of this money. And I really think I have started at the lowest level, which is to look at the family economy and what is this debt. And because if this debt is going to swallow, then you don't have a motorcycle because it's on EMI, right? And you are on all these words are, just new ones for me. This is new jargon. And then you buy everything on EMI, and then your student loan. Why are young people so powerless? Because 80% of them are on student loans.
Yeah.
So unless they get that package or that packet or whatever you call it, they can't pay off their student loans. Now, if they don't pay off their student loans, they are liable for all kinds of persecution and prosecution. So they ultimately go in.
My fees in St. Stephen's was 11 rupees.
Yeah, so I also studied with 16 rupees fees in Indraprasth College. But the point is, today it's not that anymore.
Yeah.
So in this situation, the youth are trapped. So when I put myself in their position, I feel that it's a terrible situation for them. They want to when we came to Tilonia, there were 2 postgraduates in Tilonia. Now there are hundreds of postgraduates, many of them without jobs. But if you look at the quality of that postgraduate degree, it's laughable. It's nothing. So you just look at the gamut and the way in which every single institutional and ideological position that we had, we felt if you educate people, Baba Sahib said, educate. But you're not educating people, you're just giving them literacy.
Yeah.
Education is much more than literacy. He said educate. He didn't say become literate.
Yeah.
But we're just giving people literacy. So I really think the battle is very dense. But I think we have to desegregate these battles and fight many small battles. And one day change will happen. And I also think that if you look at the way what has happened in Nepal, they have only understood the control over social media. Social media is seen as an investment. Then you can understand what the situation is like for young people, Gen Zs as they call them.
Yeah.
The Gen Zs, I came back in 2013 when I left the NAC and came back to rural India. What provoked me to come and what I told the NAC also at that time was because I came back here and I found an entire generation of young people who simply had no clue about India's political history, even the outline and skeleton. When I went to work, when I came here, when I went to work in Devnagari, then there were still elders who had a conception of history. There was still Tej Singh Ji, who knew enough English to tell you what happened when the British came and what they did. I had Kakima, whose father and her, she was a young kid in Ahmedabad, in Gandhiji's ashram. So she Sevagram, she knew, not Sevagram, sorry, in Gandhiji's ashram in Sabarmati. And she told me, and sitting with her in Songarh in the 90s, and she said, I'll sing a song which I learned from Bapu. And I thought she was referring to her father. I said, sure. So she sang Gandhiji's bhajan. I said, your Bapu taught you this? Your father, he learned from Gandhiji. She said, no, I learned it from Bapu. I said, how did you learn that? She said, my father used to look after the cows in Sevagram and I lived there with Bapu. Now, that quality of understanding and history is not there. And actually, everything has been calculated and turned into a transactional value. You do this, you get this much money. You do that, you get this much. In this whole thing, there's a lot to do and it can be done. And I think what we need to do is to understand what we as a large collective of people will do to educate people and educate ourselves in the process of understanding how to deal with this new economy, this new politics, this new world view that's coming out as if it's unilateral and unquestionable, but which is questionable. This question about warfare, look at what's happening to Palestine. Look at what's happening in Ukraine. These completely. I was born in 1946, just after the war. And I lived with memories of Germany and Hitler. And I cannot imagine that we have such a short memory, that we are going back to create situations like that. How can we do it? So I feel, yes, there is a situation which is, if you look at it in its totality, quite overwhelming and completely without any solution. But you have, and Gandhiji, I think in one way, has been a great gospel in some very important but small ways to many of us. And one thing he said was, fight your little battles.
Mm.
When the big battle is impossible, I'm using my own words.
Mm.
He said, fight the little battles because lest you forget how to fight. You'll keep your struggles going on
Yeah.
and you fight your little battles, and who knows, multiple small battles may one day become the large battle. So I think that's what keeps my hope going, Harsh.
Aruna, I really loved what how you spoke about the crisis of young people today. Um, I recall you were in college in the 60s, I was in the 70s. It was a time of great idealism. I mean, I recall that I might have been in this very elite St. Stephen's College, but most of our conversations used to be about how we'll make the world better and so on. Those were our dreams.
Yes.
I think we've, Mahashweta Devi's, the most fundamental right being the right to dream. I think we've stolen the dreams from young people, the dreams of a better world being possible, and we've replaced them with this very, very uh, crass, superficial, tinselly dreams of the next iPhone, brand and something else, etc. We've created a world where the whole aspirations, the nature of what is success, and what is a good life. I think all of that has been dismantled completely, and the neoliberal idea that greed is good and the EMI sort of I remember my father would be shocked. I mean, would be alarmed if he took any loan for anything. You don't live in debt. I mean, and now everything is in debt. But uh, just staying with young people a little longer, and then we'll, I think, talk a little bit about RTI. We cannot have a conversation with you without that central contribution you have led to our public life. At the moment we're talking, uh, young people in our neighborhood, first in Sri Lanka, then in Bangladesh, then in Nepal. It's interesting that they have all expressed what are they fighting against? They're fighting against the fact that they have no jobs, no future. They're fighting against massive inequality. They're fighting against governments which are completely, corrupt and non-responsive. They're fighting uh, uh, against the lifestyles that the rich and powerful live, and the breakdown in any kind of fundamental governance, the contract between the citizen and the state seems to have completely broken down. I see that as a common problem in many countries, especially since we know South Asia. In all of these countries, something snapped at some point, and young people took to the streets, and their rage was so much that some among them went so far as, I mean, in Nepal they burnt down parliament. They've attacked homes of their rulers across the political spectrum. Uh, in the wings is waiting the king, that the monarchy should come back. The army chief is saying this is the time for the Hindu Rashtra, etc. Young people are sort of struggling, but we saw that in Bangladesh as well, all of that idealism has got dissipated. They're moving further and further into far right religious fundamentalism. In Sri Lanka, that is happening as well. I just wanted to reflect on why is it that the young people in India are facing the same challenges. Why aren't they rebelling?
Why aren't they rebelling?
And will they? Will India get its move? And you're not a soothsayer, nor am I. But do you see? Is our legacy of caste and submission to injustice so deep that we will not rise?
No, but don't think that there is no caste and submission in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal.
Right.
Even Pakistan. I mean, it's there, all there. South Asia is riddled by the same sets of social evils. I think perhaps to some degree, the situation will not be immediate in India because we still have the vestiges of federalism.
Yeah.
I'm a Tamilian, and if I look at Tamil Nadu, it's distinctly different from
Absolutely.
UP, and I look at my neighbor Kerala. If I go down ever south, I mean, I've lived all my life in North India, but if I look at Kerala, Kerala is a state where many things have gone wrong, but there's still an idea of a political ideology. And the first thing they ask you is not which caste you are, but which party you belong to. I was very fascinated by the fact that the first thing they ask you is, which party are you from? No?
I was in Tamil Nadu recently and having a long conversation just like this with T.M. Krishna. And we were trying to understand why is Tamil Nadu the one place where the RSS has not been able to build the Muslim as the evil hate figure. And it's extraordinary. I mean, so it is that federalism, and he's saying it's Periyar substantially, and
it's Periyar. It's the fact that they were even the older Brahmins who behaved in a much more just and moral manner, who just agreed with all the premises. I've lost caste because I married out completely, and so have many members of my family. But I was born in a Brahmin family. But my grandfather dropped his caste name, and he didn't have any of the Brahmin rituals for his sons, which is my father, my uncles. They didn't have anything. He said that's all rubbish. So that influence went into the Brahmin community as well at that time. But today, if you look at the Brahmins who are now dominating Tamil Nadu cultural scene alone and what they've done to Krishna, they are people that, say, my grandfather and his peers would have looked down on as irrational people. So even amongst the Brahmins there was an influence, and that was across, and Ambedkar appealed to people right across. So the point was that you saw somewhere the role of rationality, and if you prided yourself on thought and thinking as your great tool, then somewhere you had to concede that there was so many aberrations in the package that came to you as any member of any religious community.
So you're saying India isn't seeing that kind of revolt because of the diversity of our federal structure, of our
state? I do not think making a unilateral situation, nothing can be unilaterally explained in India. So I'm saying it's one aspect of it. So if you go there, or if you go to the northeast, it's different. If you go to Kashmir, it's different. If you go to Gujarat, it's different. And every state has a different political culture. Even in Bihar, it's different. Even though Bihar is so damned, I think there's such an extraordinary difference between the political culture of Bihar and UP. Dramatic difference, because I went again and lived in rural UP and rural Bihar, and I don't, in my life, I will never make the mistake of saying that they are part of the same political syndrome. So I think one of the things that saves India is the fact that, and Tamil Nadu has had the courage and the audacity to tell Government of India off when they talked about Hindi. They even took off the sign for the rupee, said out with it. And the drop of a hat, they say Republic of Tamil Nadu. No? So I feel extremely happy when I hear it, and I really bless myself that somewhere in my heredity I have the same kind of position and courage that so many people seem to have in Tamil Nadu.
And Punjab, my heritage in Punjab, I mean the way that they have.
That's what I never mentioned Punjab, but look, Punjab is very different. So actually, you cannot force things down the Punjabi political scene either. Look at what happened. The farmers' revolt, and then post the farmers' revolt, the peasant agitation. I mean, and such a remarkable protest. I think the most extraordinary struggle in the last 5 to 10 years has been the peasants and the farmers' revolt.
And their support for Shaheen Bagh.
And they supported Shaheen Bagh. They supported all the issues of inequality. So I think it's difficult to think of India as one at many levels. They're trying very desperately to make it standardized. To what extent they will do, we'll have to wait and see. And whether the exigency of calling yourself members of a political party is just to get a ticket and get to parliament or the local assembly or to the panchayat, or whether it goes deeper and changes your mindset into a different ideological situation, I don't know. But let me say that the Right to Information campaign has given me, I don't know how long that will last, but it still carries in me, it carries on in me as a buoyancy that if you hit the right issue,
Yeah.
then who thought? Harsh, you came to us. You encouraged us to go to Biawar. We were so timid at that time. And we told you we can't go to, we just had these public hearings. And you said, but you have to go to Biawar. You have to take on a bigger issue. You have to sit there. If you don't remember, I remember. And because of that, we all came to Biawar, and the first big protest in Biawar changed the nature of the RTI demand from a struggle and a issue about minimum wages to imagining a different kind of government where a different relationship between the citizen and the state as equals.
Absolutely.
Where you say, I have the right to know and you have to produce the documents. What a change it was. And
In
Harsh,
fact,
so many people.
not even equal. I mean, it was that we are the masters.
Yes, exactly.
You are the servant.
It finally turned out we are the masters, you're the servants. And this realization came like a flash to so many groups and people and so many categories and many. I mean, I was amazed, and I'm still amazed at how it was like a complete fire that raged, or I mean, you want to use a better word, complete transformation of the Indian mind everywhere. And of course, the Biawar stories are fantastic stories. And of course, the way we turned from a Gagra Paltan into the Right to Information campaign, and how, women and men and local people were flabbergasted at this motley group of poor chaps coming and sitting there and eating rotis on the road, to becoming committed RTI activists. And we finished 20 years now this next month, and we are celebrating it again in Biawar, and the whole town celebrates with us. And let me just mention one thing, because we've been talking about all these things. Last year, Biawar has become a district, by the way, and they attributed to the Right to Information campaign and their role in it. So they mentioned it in all their various things. So we went and said, we want an RTI museum there. Why don't you give us land? The municipality is a BJP dominated municipality. They first, in 2016, erected a monument in memory of the Dharna in Changate.
Okay.
All Congress, BJP. I said, what about party affiliations? They said, no, RTI mein hamara koi matbhed nahi hai. So they erected that thing. And now this land has been allotted. They've bought that land, and there's an RTI museum in the making. Last year we had a meeting. Everyone turned up for that, and because there's something in it which is moral, which is ethical, and which is attractive. I didn't think that it would turn out like that. I don't know how many others thought it, but it's just taken me aback. So I think what it has reassured me is that there is something still left in the human psyche for an ethical universe, because what has been destroyed systematically by the market and with this kind of religious politics and all of that is the ethics. Religion is chewed up ethics. And religion can't chew up ethics. Religion is based on ethics. How can it chew up ethics? So all these fundamental questions are still hanging there to be asked.
The distortion of religion, the misuse of religion has destroyed ethics.
But it is really, because without morality, there's nothing. So what has happened is that RTI brought in a very small equation. And I think I maybe make a very tall claim, but like all the greatest scientific equations, when you come down to it, it's very simple. So all that it said was, everything in the government is mine because the Constitution says in its preamble that I'm sovereign. And if I'm sovereign, I have a right to know what is happening because you're dealing with my money. Two very interesting stories, which both of them. When we were sitting in that meeting together in Mussoorie, we were saying, what should be what can we see and what we cannot see, and we argued and discussed for so long. And then NC Saxena just walked into the room and he said, what's going on? And I remember all of us saying, we're looking at the positive list and the negative list. And he said, what list? What your member of parliament and member of the legislative assembly can see, you can see. He's a representative.
And whatever question they can ask,
you can ask.
The citizen can ask.
And what an absolutely wonderful formulation that was. And so many of us gave in so much to it. And it became, for me, it was a revelation. So the RTI for me is a creed, it's a code. it's a political doctrine. In a sense, it is the only way in which we can keep a democracy going is if we use the RTI. But they also now know that the RTI has to be destroyed one way or the other. If all, because after all, even these electoral bonds,
Was
the
the first
exposure was through
was
RTI.
but it was an attempt to destroy the right to know.
Yes, of course,
The little bond.
of course. But the exposure was through RTI.
Right.
So many places, and I know from very good friends who are in the legal profession that many very important cases, people who've been in jail, accused of the most heinous crimes, have used RTI to expose the fault lines in the
In the
arguments of the state.
Mhm.
So I think it is a very, very strong weapon. And it's this fear of this weapon that makes them all want to destroy the RTI.
But what
But
is
it's
the details of this law? Because this is with the digital protection law. Why is it? Why do you see it as the death knell of RTI?
because it destroys in Section 8, we have the right to ask any question.
Right.
And it gives fiduciary, it doesn't give us fiduciary rights. So I can ask only about myself and the person in front. I can't ask a general question. And none of these questions about corruption or arbitrary use of power can be done without asking a general question. Like when you were divisional commissioner and we all came, we couldn't just ask in that pension, in that ration shop for just one individual. We had to ask a general question about all rations. Then you can't say it pertains to information to somebody else. And
that was the core of the RTI, was that you don't have to prove your interest in
not at all.
If this is information that is that the government needs to collect, you should have the right to access it. They can't ask you what is your interest. I think that is what.
And you know what the penalty is? It goes into crores if you violate this. And of course, digital data. All our lives are in those damn cards. Your Aadhaar card and my Aadhaar card. We all fought against the Aadhaar card, but eventually we would have become criminals. So we had to get the Aadhaar card because we didn't want to be criminals, not because we believed in it. So all these cards and the manufacture of this information, the way it is stored. I don't have fingerprints. None of my friends in the village have fingerprints. I can't have.
Why don't you have fingerprints?
I'm elderly. Elderly people lose their fingerprints in any case. And also because it's okay with me because I can get into some kind of vehicle, pay for it, go to the place where I can get an iris test done. But what about my friend who can't even walk properly? She hobbles to the bus stand, gets with great difficulty into the bus to come for the Aadhaar verification unit, and they tell her you go 20 kilometers away and get your iris test. How the hell is she going to do it? So this data and this whole data war has also got to be fought, and this control over our lives through data collection, I feel instead of protecting the data, it needs to be exposed. I think it's completely the reverse, I feel. How can you say I have a right to know what my government is doing, but not show me what you're storing in the data? I need to know everything. So there's a new weapon now that's being used against us. So actually,
and a lot of it is with the private sector. I was studying that there are now 1,200 different companies that are working with the government and storing our different bits of our data through all kinds of digital.
Yes, and they can do what they like with it. And the government, instead of controlling that data, wants to control us, the people who seek the data. So their interests are very clear, and they must be. I don't know what it is that is. I can guess, but anyway, I won't guess. So I don't want to guess. But intelligent viewers will all know what the reasons are that governments are now succumbing to pressures from various private parties and owners and corporations for towing the line. So ultimately, if we look at government today, are we looking at only the politicians? Are we looking at big money as well? Are we looking at transnational and transnational interests? Because
it's transnational crony capitalism.
yes, it is now today. Because you're no longer paying tax in any country. You're looking at tax havens. You're parking your money somewhere in some place where there is no taxation. For me, even my imagination balks at the level of which it's happening. So when Sushila went to Delhi and she uh, and they were asked her in 1996.
So Sushila is one of the.
Sushila, this friend of mine who's a fourth class pass, RTI struggler from Javaja, she went there and they asked her, "What have you come to do? Justice Sawant is presenting the law, the draft of the law. What do you know about it?" Two ex-prime ministers, so many members and editors of newspapers. And when they asked her that, she said in Hindi, but in Hindi or English, what do you think I should say it in?
Say it in both.
In Hindi, she said, मैं चौथी पास हूँ मगर मैं जानती हूँ मैं क्या मांग रही हूँ. मेरे बेटे को 10 रुपए देकर मैं बाजार बेचती हूँ, वो वापस आता है तो मैं हिसाब लेती हूँ. ये सरकार मेरे से अरबों खरबों रुपए मेरे नाम से खर्चती है, हिसाब नहीं लूंगी क्या? हमारा पैसा हमारा हिसाब. She said, when I send my son with 10 rupees to the market and when he comes back I ask for accounts, this government spends millions of rupees in my name. Won't I ask for the accounts? It's my money, so it's my accounts. And that equation of our money, our accounts, my money, my accounts is extraordinarily fantastic. It was like a miracle that happened in the breakthrough of communication. And everybody understood that simply in 1 minute. That's why the CAG, who first could not comprehend the social audit or the Jan Sunwai, then realized actually this law has made everyone an auditor. Everyone can audit. And similarly, members of the political parties realize that we are all equally empowered to ask any question. As they would, we can. And we'll get the same kind of answers. So I think the threat to the status quo makes these people who are in government very afraid. And you and I know best because when we go to the academy together, we face the flack from probationers who have questioned.
Who are so frustrated with the RTI. Because, I wish we had more time, but now I think we're running out of time. But I wanted to go to, finally, to the title of your book, The Personal is Political. You've led a very public political life, but you're also a woman. You also have a home. You have siblings. You have a whole large segment of friends, people. So, is there? How have you negotiated the personal, your radical politics, with your personal life? And maybe that women particularly who are listening to this would I'm sure be very interested.
First of all, my first politics is feminism. Now, whether I'm a radical feminist, I don't think I'm a radical feminist. I'm a global peace feminist, if you like, because I do believe that feminism has an answer which the world has not really understood as to being an alternative
I see
way
myself
of life.
Also as a feminist socialist.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That feminism is part socialism, but feminism is a little more than socialism. And those of you who know Roy know that he's talked about radical humanism. So humanism, for forgotten, is not acceptable to most women. Even our arguments that tears are not cowardice, tears are not something to be ashamed of. It's a means of expression and as important and as valid as words or anything else. The arguments that we have had for exerting the way we express ourselves, the way we dress, the way we think, and for ultimately even for logic. We have said that syllogism is not the only thing. There are different ways of thinking. And we've said a woman thinks. Of course she thinks. Just because she doesn't think according to the syllogistic way that you think, or what Aristotle preached as the way and only way to think, which is not the only way to think, by the way, then you dismiss her as somebody who doesn't know. But she knows. She understands. She is courageous. She comprehends. She saves culture. She saves people. She saves forests. She's the one who's saving the world today. And she is important if this world has to carry on. Even in the campaigns for RTI, our campaign, 80% were women at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
They understood the need for transparency to make sure that their children got food, their homes ran better, that they could fight their husbands on issues. I mean, it's something women have always had, and we are
I,
lateral thinkers.
no, I'd like to just sort of add something which is very central to my work. I've spent a lot of my years working with people who are survivors of hate violence, and I found the gender difference is extraordinary. After a communal riot, almost without exception, the large number of men just break down. They can't see their world having collapsed around them. So there's mental health problems, there's alcohol, drugs, and there's domestic violence, huge. Women, on the other hand, after something like this happens, again, almost without exception, I'm talking about right from the anti-Sikh riots to Gujarat 2002 to many others, women become stronger. They hold their family together. They so they discover a strength, whereas the man breaks down when the world collapses. So yeah, that's another.
Yeah, I think there is a. I don't know whether it's biological or whether
I
it's
think it's cultural.
psychological.
It's
I don't know whether
cultural.
it's no, but it's beyond culture because it goes across the world
Mhm.
to different kinds of cultural conditioning. That a woman has the spontaneous empathy and sympathy, which you just can't. I mean, if you see something happening,
Hmm.
it just been broken
Yeah.
systematically by alternative conditioning, and that's what shocked me when I went to Gujarat, for instance, that
Yeah.
you could have women become, and that actually broke my ideal to some extent, and I had to come and rethink my feminism in many
Yeah.
ways.
In Gujarat,
But
women were endorsing the rape of women
yeah,
by their
because
husbands.
yes, they were endorsing violence, which I could not have believed possible before then. But I do think that then I rethought and I reread my feminism, and I met a very interesting woman called Jill Tweedy, who was a great British feminist. And I realized that feminism is not based on sexuality. Whether you're a female born or a male born doesn't decide and determine your feminism.
Mhm.
You're feminist because you believe in a certain value.
Mhm.
And in that, majorly, we may be women, but there are also men. And many men are maybe even more uh, sympathetic and empathetic. Maybe you are more empathetic and sympathetic than I am, Ash. It may be in certain situations. So it's not a unilateral line you draw between the sexuality of a male and the sexuality of a female. So I've been reading all this. The Personal is Political, however, is a book in which I don't talk about my uh, the personal, the political. I don't talk about my intimate relationships in that at all. The private has been completely chopped off, and I'm not interested in discussing my private in public. But I'm definitely interested in discussing my personal in the public. Because every decision I take has a political implication, and every political decision has a personal impact on me as a human being. I've kept it till then, and I did not go into the private, and I felt it was a conscious decision that I took that I wouldn't do it. But I'm fed up with everybody asking you questions about your marriage or what did you do with this one and that. Nobody's business. I feel it's my business, and it's my business to decide what to do with it. And I don't need to put it in the public domain. But I certainly do need to say what happens in a dharna. When I go to a dharna, I'm furious and angry, like anything in that dharna. I really am a different person. I don't talk soberly and sedately as I do now. Shout slogans, talk against people. And then when you come back home, the residue of the dharna is still with you. So somebody asks you something you don't like, and you same pitch of voice you talk to them. The pitch doesn't change immediately. It's a sort of a cycle which slowly comes down to. Then, of course, you understand about social anger. You have to contain yourself. You do all that, but personal is political in so many ways. The government decides about something; it impacts me in my life. What I do in my life should impact that politics. If it doesn't impact that politics, especially on social issues and other issues, and I worry whether I have a right to say anything or live a moral life if I don't protest against what is immoral in life and in public life. So the line of morality, which is what I think is the basis of all our collective existence, is very important. And jumping many things, but of course this is a conversation which jumped many things, so I can jump again, is that I am very disturbed by this the post-truth generation debate, the post-ideology debates. I think there can be nothing which is post-truth. There can be nothing which is post-ideology.
Absolutely.
How can you have these conversations? So for me, therefore, as a woman, I protest.
Yes.
As a public person, how can you not have a moral compass? As a person who is a human being, how can you not have a moral compass? And humanism, or whatever you'd like to call it, the human condition, how can you not have a moral compass? Of course, you have to have a moral compass. And this moral compass alone makes you fight the issues that I've fought for against caste, against religious minority, victimization of religious minorities, victimization of caste, victimization of women. If I didn't have this moral compass, I would have done nothing. So that's the core of my life. So how can I not fight for the existence of a moral compass? And the destruction of that gives me more worries than anything else in life. And I think that is something which young people don't think about, those who get mesmerized by the online purchases and all that. Then one day there is something much more fundamental which will come and slap all of us in the face. Now are we ready at that time to answer the maker?
So I think, Aruna, perhaps what you're saying is that what bridges the personal and the political is the moral compass that you have to sort of fight to hold on to in a time when so much of it is breaking down around you. But we can't end this conversation really without reflecting a little bit on, I think you fought many battles, but the battle for the right to information and the battle for the right to work in NREGA, both of them have been perhaps the most important battles that you have been part of. And both of these seem in great danger. So maybe just in your parting words, would you like to talk about these dangers and what we, the people of India, need to do to defend both these rights?
Both these rights ask for equality.
Yes.
Basically, that's why no one likes it. One asks for, the other asks for equal power. It actually, when you ask, the right to information is the right to know, the right to know is the right to power. And everyone who sits in powerful places wants impunity, is frightened of the RTI. The right to work, on the contrary, is so important for a small percentage of the population, say 20 to 30% of India, who are hungry. And for me, it's the most humanistic battle that I've ever fought. There are people who can survive if they have food in their plate. There are people who are willing to toil those 8 hours a day in burning heat in Rajasthan, provided they can take home that money to feed the people.
It's largely women.
Largely women. And the hatred for this program and this project and the kind of things that have been said about it, that India's economy has failed because of the right to work, is so absolutely absurd. So it's like the absurd thing that happened in, I don't know where. I mean, it's like reading Gulliver's Travels for me. You can't make a more absurd statement, but everyone seems to buy it. And there is this absolute bogey that they are making of poverty.
What they're actually saying is that because of our NREGA, we are not able to exploit labor quite as much as we did earlier, and so the economy is collapsing.
Exactly.
That is really the
argument. But that is not the truth that they are pointing out. They're saying all kinds of other things. For the first time, the poor have had bargaining power.
Yeah.
And they've been able to say, you don't give me the right wage, I'll go to Narega. For the first time, a family has got 20 to 30,000 rupees in cash every year. For the first time, when Northi was Sarpanch of Harmada, she was able to get 1 crore every year to the panchayat for payment of wages to people who were doing NREGA work. With that, she built a hospital. With that, she built so many things. She got land back to Muslims' graveyard. She built a boundary wall so there would be no more encroachment. I mean, there have been phenomenal things done with that money. It broke through social barriers, through economic, in economic issues. So how can you talk like this? And if you go to that village, and just the other day, Shankar went to a woman and he said, "Come, there's a meeting. Why don't you come?" She said, "No, old woman." When we're talking of pensions this time. And she said, "Wait, my children will come and they'll send me the food. And once they send me the food, I'll come." He waited with her for 1 hour. He said, "You get the food, you eat, and then I'll take you with me." The food didn't come. So when he said, "What's happened? Your food has not been sent by your children?" She said, "Today they may not have got to work." So the whole family starves. I mean, can you allow anyone to starve? What kind of a society is this? What kind of an economy is this? What kind of a politics is this that allows that kind of starvation? So I do believe you have to have an ideology. The ideology will be based on the constitution. The ideology will be based on equality. It will be based on the preamble of the constitution. There is no compromise on any of those things for anything. And if we don't stand up for that, the India of my dreams will collapse completely. And we'll have to rebuild another India. If we do, if we can, I don't know what it will be like. And I was just reading the notes and writings of Ambedkar and Radhakrishnan after the Constituent Assembly. And Ambedkar said that if we make politics, we put politics above, creed above politics, then that's the end of India.
Yeah.
And Radhakrishnan says that if we get into this miasma, I mean, my language, miasma of orthodoxy and superstition and, regressive, all the regressive social issues, India will not see this light of day. So they were fully aware of the pitfalls that this country was capable of. They were fully aware also because just after partition, they did not want India to go into another war like that, into another insane killing that happened at that time. So all these issues frame that constitution. So we have a secular constitution, we have equality of all religions. I mean, nothing could have been a better document than that for guiding modern India into a more equal, just, and fairly prosperous country. Why should we compromise on that? So for that, I think till I live, I'll probably fight however I can, as a woman, as a social activist, as a citizen.
So one word for young people, and that's very then. What would you counsel your grandchildren?
Well, I think that young people have to understand that without genuine peace, born of equality, tolerance, of understanding, and of sympathy, India has no future. And they have to contribute to it in little and big ways. It doesn't have to be a huge set of public actions. It can be simple things with your neighbor, with your friends, with everything in life. And I remember last year when we had this RTI meeting in Biawar, we invited everyone in Biawar. So we invited also the 4 religious heads, the Maulvi, the Jattedar, we invited the priest, and we invited the Pandit. And I was made to chair that session. And the first thing we did was we took our pledge to the preamble to the Indian Constitution, and each one of them was invited to bless the Constitution from their religious point of view. And I think what happened then was phenomenal, because people in the audience were all people of faith. They either have Christian faith or Muslim faith or Islamic faith or Hindu faith or their Sikh faith, but they all felt empowered because their religious leader was blessing the Constitution. I think we have to use methods in which we get religion to understand that it has to have the complete right to practice, but cannot in any way dominate over others. So we have the right to religious worship, but we don't have the right to demand that everybody worship the way we do. And that's something young people must understand. And that if we don't have the respect for the other person's faith, we don't have respect for our own faith, as Gandhiji said. And he said very clearly that God has no religion. And it's true.
And as Santuram said, in the end, we can only go ahead if we hold each other's hands.
Yes.
That's
Tukaram's songs, the Abhangs are so beautiful, and we should hear them every day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Harsh.
ये दाग दाग उजाला ये शब कसीदा सहर वो इंतजार था जिसका, ये वो सहर तो नहीं।